Nazis to shame. So number 5 is Pavlov's platoon holds off the Nazis. All of them. So the, quote, half-assed Hollywood efforts. So here's a story implausible enough. It could have only come from the fantasy genre, specifically the Battle of Helm's Deep from Lord of the Rings. I love those movies. Honestly, when I was reading this article, own experiences, as well as members who would be Fleming's inspirations for M.Q., Miss Moneypenny, and the sultry Vesperlind. They were joined by the future Dracula Saruman, Duco Christopher Lee. They were stationed at Baker Street, essentially. Yep, the place where Sherlock Holmes did live and solve his mysteries. These Baker Street irregulars were Churchill's go-to guys and gals for ungentlemanly welfare. Yeah, I don't know why this isn't a movie. If there was a bridge that needed busting, or an Axis officer who needed seducing, you'd better believe the SOE had all the cloaks and daggers necessary to make sure Colonel Archenslog spent his last moments of World War II getting murdered in his bed anywhere from the English Channel to Southeast Asia. The ministry's greatest achievements, and perhaps the single finest act of sabotage in all of World War II, was Operation Gunnerside. So this is a crossover between the Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare and their cousins in the Norwegian resistance. Their mission: to track a commando unit of former Vikings to join SOE on a secret mission to destroy a heavy water plant in Norway before the Nazis could build an atomic bomb with it. So it's thanks to these unknowns of World War II that Hitler did not have any nuclear-tipped V-2 rockets to turn the last couple months of the war into something of a judgment day. So they do deserve their own movie. Number 3. Moffat's squadron takes down a floating Death Star. Okay, so half-assed movie effort. So Luke's Red Squadron from Star Wars, if instead of a fantasy space technology, the Red Squadron used a flare gun and a if you